for all my labor wherein I have labored, and wherein I have showed myself wise under the sun. This also is vanity. Therefore I went about to cause my heart to despair of all the labor which I took under the sun. For there is a man whose labor is in wisdom, and in knowledge, and in equity. Yet to a man that hath not labored therein shall he leave it for his portion. This also is vanity and a great evil. For what hath man of all his labor and of the vexation of his heart wherein he hath labored under the sun? For all his days are sorrows, and his travail grief. Yea, his heart taketh not rest in the night. This also is vanity. There is nothing better for a man that he should eat and drink, and that he should make his soul enjoy the good of his labor. This also I saw, that it was from the hand of God. For who can eat, or who else can hasten unto more than I? For God giveth to a man that is good in his sight wisdom, and knowledge, and joy. But to the sinner he giveth travail, to gather and to heap up, that he may give him that is good before God. This also is vanity and vexation of spirit. Let's pray together. Father, we want to thank you for the privilege we have to gather together, to read thy word, to exhort, to admonish, strengthen, to teach one another in the great truths that are found in thy blessed word. Father, may we understand that this is not the vanity that this vanity experiences in life. Rather, this is joy and rejoicing to the heart and soul of those who are trusted in thee. Bless thy name in our midst. In the Savior's name we pray. Amen. All right, this section from verses 18 to 26, the end of the chapter, we're looking at the vanity of labor. There's a lot of us feel that way anyways, right? The vanity of labor. So here we are, the preacher speaking, and as we consider these verses, we'll discover that, first of all, labor is a good thing. There is nothing wrong with working. In fact, working is what God designed us to do, not to be idle. And that it's a gift from God, that he has given us that, and that we are to enjoy the fruit of our labor. In fact, we should be content with what God has given us and not to be consumed with or even consider what shall be our labor, what shall be the result of what we have gathered together in this life, what's going to happen when we leave. Not to be too concerned about what happens to what we've done in this life. We are clearly instructed in Scripture to labor, to provide for our families, and to give to the poor. We are to lay up in store for difficult days and prepare our fields, all which involve labor. You can't expect to go out and harvest any wheat if you don't plow and plant and let God give you the increase. And Solomon points out, Solomon's point of view seems to be that which shall come of what's going to be the result of all the labor that I put out there. What's going to happen to all the work that I've done and all the money that I have piled up, heaped up, as we already seen the scriptures talk about? What's going to happen to all of this that I have done? So we see that there's a little concern on his part about what's going to happen to what is his. Verse 1, or verse 18. Yea, I hated all my labor which I had taken under the sun. Why? Because I should leave it unto the man that shall be after me. You just can't take it with you, can you? I hated my labor which I had done under the sun, because I should leave it to the man after me. Why he hated his labor. But why do you keep on working if you're working for somebody else who's going to come after you? Would you say that his perspective is a little skewed? You think he's got a point of view that He's worried about something he shouldn't be worrying about. Yet how many people are consumed with that? How many people spend their time thinking about, well, I've got to plan out my will. I've got to make sure that somebody gets this and somebody gets that, and make sure that all my possessions are dispersed the way I want them to be dispersed. But then we've heard of people who they have the possessions and say, well, you know what? That particular child, it was a real pain, and I don't want to give them anything because they'll just squander it. They'll just use it in a wrong way. I don't want them to have anything, and they'll cut people out of their will. So are you angry and begrudging them and things like that? I mean, there's all sorts of things that can be added into that, but here's his problem. Because it'll be left to the man that should follow me. I lose control of what is mine when I die. As if he could reach back and control it. I'm going to lose control of it. What am I going to do about that? He loses all control of it. The perpetuity of his name, his riches. What about your name? Will they continue on? We all want to be remembered, don't we, after we die? Of course. How long do you think you're going to be remembered after you die? Not very long, huh? Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Who cares? Well, sometimes we get concerned about that. So we have streets named after us. I live on Heffron Lane. But you know what? People do have streets named after them. They're the first ones who developed their house on a particular road, and the town or whatever the county named it after you. And but then when you're gone and other people move in, they have no idea why it's named what it's named. The perpetuity of your name, the perpetuity of your riches, your good. Sometimes we get concerned about these things. Are we supposed to have a good name? Absolutely. We're to have a good name. In other words, the life that we live is reflective of Christ. And we want men to think of us in a good way as being a man that pays his bills, took care of his family, a wife that took care of her husband, raised her children. And we want to have a good name. And that is what we're to strive to have. But does it really matter if our name perpetuates beyond just this time? We all want to be remembered, but you know what? At this point, my great-grandchildren will have no idea who me and my wife are. They're too young to know. But they get older, hopefully they'll get to know us if we live long enough. Remember, the scripture says 80, if by reason of strength 80. Well, I've already reached my 80. Lord willing, I might make it to 80. But then beyond that, generationally speaking, my great-grandchildren will probably be the last that will ever know who I am. That's it. Because we've had contact with each other and we know each other. So that's the extent of it. So sometimes we get a little bit concerned about that. He loses control of it, his perpetuity, his names, his riches. He laboriously gathered to lose through his successor. Look at all that Solomon built. He built buildings, gorgeous buildings. He built gardens and waterways and a zoo and all sorts of things. I mean, silver was nothing. And things were, his cups weren't made out of silver, they were made out of gold. He just heaped it up to himself. He had everything you could think of. But what was it going to be after that? How much did Jeroboam labor in helping Solomon get his riches? And he was going to be leaving it to Jeroboam, right? Or is it Rehoboam? Get those two mixed up. Which one was the son? Jeroboam or is it Rehoboam? Rehoboam was the son. Jeroboam was the guy who came and took 10 tribes north. Okay, Rehoboam. I hope. If and thou hast not kept my covenant and my statutes which I commanded thee, I will surely rend the kingdom from thee and give it to thy servant. Solomon expected some perpetuity, and yet he was going to lose. God said that when you're dead, I'm going to take the kingdom, split it. He takes 10 tribes to the north and leaves him with one tribe, Judah plus Benjamin. Benjamin was the smallest of all the tribes. So Benjamin and Judah remained together. We're all obliged to leave our possessions, our estates, our riches, our treasures to another. Right? We're obliged to do that. So we can't carry them with us. Job said, naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked I shall return thither. The Lord gave, and the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. He gave your life, and He'll take your life. We only have X amount of days to live. So all that we own, all that we possess, all the riches we keep, if we keep any, so we either have some or none, it does or a little, all the cars that we have, everything that we own, we're obliged to leave them. So why do we set so much weight and value upon them? That's a good question. He says, and who knoweth whether he shall be a wise man or a fool? Yet he shall have rule over my labor, wherein I have labored, wherein I have showed myself wise under the sun. This also is vanity. Here the preacher expresses a grave concern of what his heir might do with what he's labored so hard for. I worked really hard. I'm going to give it to you. Therefore, you better do something wise with what I've done. Well, if you're so concerned about those good books, just give them to me, and I'll take care of it. No problem. I told my brother Israel, I says, when I'm gone, you can have all my books. See, he wants all my books. I don't have a lot of books. I've gotten rid of a number of them because they're on my computer. And so I reference those all the time. However, if everything goes to pieces and falls apart, I don't have a computer anymore, and the internet doesn't work. Well, mine doesn't require internet to get to these programs, but I won't have my books. But I'll get by just fine. As long as I have my Bible, I'll get by just fine. But I told Israel he could have all my books. So if you have a problem with books, you give them to me, and then Brother Israel, he'll inherit them. And so we'll just try to keep it among the Baptist preachers, so they'll be able to use them. Your son's going to get most of it? So why don't you just give it to him? You don't have to worry about holding up that table leg anymore. Oh, well, I'll come over and pick them up for you. I'm trying to help my dear brother out here with his dilemma over there about his books.
But books, some people think about stuff.
Yeah. Yep. Books are a precious thing, especially to a preacher. They can be they're very precious because there's hundreds, thousands, hundreds of years of knowledge packed into those things. It's so useful. Mm-hmm. Yes, very useful. All right, Rehoboam is right. Rehoboam is Solomon's son. Jeroboam is the other one. Okay. So Solomon expresses what will he do? What will Rehoboam do with everything he did? Will he make good use or bad of it? How did he do? How did Rehoboam do? Not so good, did he? Because he heard the old wise men give an instruction on how he ought to rule and maybe reduce taxes and stuff, because there was really no need to have any more taxes. He already had burdened the people with taxes. And Rehoboam said, okay, that's enough. Let me listen to these younger guys. And they said, no, just increase the taxes. As if Rehoboam didn't already have enough. He already inherited everything that his dad had. And what more could a man ask for? He said, no, I'm going to increase your taxes. And as a result, the Lord had used that to provoke a revolt. And then Jeroboam came in and took the 10 tribes to the north. All right. So we know that Rehoboam acted the fool in rejecting the advice of his advisors. And as a result, the kingdom was divided. Let me ask, does it really matter what our heirs do with our possessions after we're gone?
Me personally.
No, really doesn't matter. Now, suppose you're a sibling. A little bit of perspective. Now, your brother or your sister got something of dad's or mom's, and they absolutely abuse it, or they do something foolish with it. Now, what's your attitude about that?
Theirs to do with.
Exactly right. It was theirs to do with what they want. So should we get angry and mad and upset because they took some heirloom and they stole it? Because you really wanted it. But they went and sold it to somebody else, and you get really mad at your sibling, and so much so that you don't talk to them for a long time. Do people get that way?
No.
All the time. Do we get that way? More than we should. I was going to see if there was absolute silence or not. We do. We do get jealous or upset because some sibling got something or privilege or something that we thought that they didn't deserve, and they squandered it, used it, and we get all upset. But let me ask, was it given to you? Given to them. It was theirs to do with as they liked. So we shouldn't get upset about things like that. So because then our focus is on what? Possessions rather than on the Lord. Because what you do have, how did you get them? From the Lord. It was the hand of the Lord that gave to you to begin with. So you should rejoice in everything that the Lord gives you. And what he doesn't give you, it's because he knows that you ought not to have it. Think about that. Was that?
Prodigal's brother.
The prodigal's brother. You know, we would be best just to be content with everything that God has given us. But how often do we get our feathers ruffled? It says, therefore, I went about to cause my heart to despair of all the labor that I took under the sun. You talk about opposites, or this, he says, because this was going to happen, what I did is I decided that I was just going to hate everything that I did. I'm going to hate all the labor that I did. I'm just going to, the word there, despair, means to turn about. So he says, for this reason, I, not knowing what shall become of all the labor, that after I'm gone, I'm going to turn about from all my labor. His study of wisdom, his pursuit of pleasure, he gave it all up. He wanted to find some peace of mind, and this certainly wasn't causing any peace of mind. It was causing a great deal of turmoil and anxiety, worrying about what was going to happen to all the riches that he had gathered through the ages, or through the years, not ages. He's worried about it. And it caused so much anxiety, he says, I'm going to hate my labor. I'm going to just turn away from it. I need to find some peace of mind. That sounds familiar. And nothing happens like that in our day and age, do they? And nothing happens with us. Like we never are filled with any anxiety about some of our possessions. What if? You ever played the what if game? What if? Doesn't the what if question produce anxiety? Because now we got to solve the what if. We got to figure out how we can work out the what if so that it isn't quite so bad as if we imagined it. What if? What if this happened? What if that happened? What if that happened? Well, we need to make sure that we have the answers to all these questions, and we can be filled with a great deal of anxiety. What if? So what are we going to despair? What's the problem? We have a horizontal point of view, right? We want to take care of all of these contingencies of life, right? We got to buy the insurance. We want to make sure we got lots of insurance because what if? And we got to do this because what if? And so we want to answer all these problems. We look at all the contingencies. Isn't that the way the insurance people work anyways? They figure out all the contingencies and they figure out their actuaries and decide how much they're going to charge you for your insurance. What if? Therefore I went about to cause my heart to despair of all my labor. To put away, he says, I'm tired of the anxiety. You ever got that way yourself in your personal life? Where just you have all these things that are going on, all these troubles, all these things you got to plan for, all these things you got to anticipate, and we fill ourselves with anxiety. How many of you, rhetorically, you have to raise your hand? I'm going to raise mine because it's true. Have you been kept awake at night about the things that are going to either might happen the next day, or things that you haven't prepared for, or things that are coming up later in the week, and we feel ourselves with anxiety, and we can't sleep, we can't rest, we're in turmoil about it. The preacher says, I'm done. I'm walking away because I need some peace of mind. I need time for my brain to rest. That's where he was here. Is at this time I caused my heart to despair of all my labor which I took under the sun. For there is a man whose labor is in wisdom and in knowledge and in equity, yet to a man that hath not labored therein shall he leave his portion. This also is vanity and a great evil. All right. Sounds like the preacher's talking about, because he says he labored in wisdom and knowledge and equity. What's equity? What's equity? I'm not talking about the equity in your house, which a lot of us are trying to find, right? So what is equity?
Somebody else's idea of worth it.
Okay. The base word from equity would be like equal. Equal. So we're talking about that which is equal, that which is balanced. The Bible, Scripture, Proverbs talks about equity in relationship to that which morally right, that which is equal justice under the law. We've heard that term. Equal justice would be equity among the people. That in fact our Constitution says that we are to have equity in that we are equal as people. And so we all have inalienable rights equally as people that are part of this great nation, this republic. So the equity means he's dealing with someone who is wise, he's knowledgeable, and he's also just in all his dealings. There is equity, and he takes the value, each person having equal value, and that the law and the rules apply to everyone equally. So there's equity. So here's a man who does all that he's able in civil things and religious things. He cares for his family. He's honest. He has a good name in the community. He is wise in his finances, in his business. He is honest. In fact, I already mentioned that. Just as he does all things in equity, he does what is right and just, and he leaves it all to someone who has not lifted a finger to help him in his labor. Makes perfect sense, doesn't it? All that work, all that good day, you've done everything that you can in your life, and you're going to leave it to someone who is lazy fella, maybe doesn't have a good name, you know, and we go, that just isn't right. That just isn't fair. You know, tell me where the word fair is used in the Bible. Take fair and scratch it out, throw it away. Fairness is not found in the Bible, but guess what is? Equity found in the Bible. It may not be fair that Johnny got a big piece of cake and Susie got a tiny piece of cake. But Susie is 6 and Johnny is 12. Susie's going to say, it's not fair. Right? It's not fair that Johnny got such a big piece of cake. But Johnny's 12. Susie's 6. Mama doesn't want Susie bouncing off the wall all night. So, equity, just, wisdom is involved. Of course, I don't know how much wisdom is in the cake, but we won't go there. I'm sure we're going to all have desserts this afternoon. So remember, when you go to the dessert, think of equity. You should have the apple, not the apple pie. No offense. All right. So we got, whether this is Solomon or not, he's leaving everything to his son. And Rehoboam, who contributed nothing to the family wealth, it says nothing of, obviously he wasn't a wise man. You can see that by how he reacted, or how he acted with the people and whose counsel he took. So he wasn't a very wise man, and he didn't contribute to the family wealth. He probably used it for, he was probably a very spoiled child, most likely. And when it speaks of a man whose labor, whether he has no children to inherit his labor, any way you look at it, it's a vanity, it's a great evil, or a tragedy, or a calamity. That's what he's saying. It's a great evil. It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy that all your good work gets wasted on somebody else. It's a calamity. It seems to be especially disastrous to the person who receives any of your wealth. All right. Doesn't sound like a good situation, does it? All right. For what hath man of all his labor, and the vexation of his heart wherein he hath labored under the sun? In our vernacular, it's, so what's the use? So what's the use of working so hard, amassing what you got? It just, the person who's going to get it afterwards is going to waste it. He's not very wise anyways. What's the use? A man labors all his life with the hardship, the sorrow, the vexation. Tell me, is it not hard to get up every day, to go to work, to collect your paycheck, to come back home? It's just for you to get up the next day and go back to work, and you do this for years and years on end. And all of us are looking to go, oh, is this ever going to end? Especially when one's work is disintegrated under the hand of an incompetent. Huh? Yeah. Yeah. You're trying to reconcile the two, but remember the perspective here. This is under the sun. This is just, and remember, what kind of inheritance should we leave our children's children? Is it respect? Is it speaking only of wealth or money? What about a spiritual inheritance? What about raising children who are good, even if they're not believers, but are civically minded, lawful parents that are upright in society? That is an inheritance that you have given them, that they may also raise up children like them. So there's a lot of ways in which we can apply that verse too about giving an inheritance. It's just not money only. We can give godly inheritance. We can give an inheritance of knowledge. Knowledge is something that can be passed on. Wisdom is something that can be passed on. So there's a variety of ways in which we can give an inheritance to our children and to our children's children that benefits them, which goes be a lot of times if it's a large amount of money, all we're going to do is corrupt. You've heard of people who give large amounts of money as an inheritance, but they say, okay, you can't use it until you're 35. They figure by that time you've at least had a chance to grow a brain. So, but you're right, it is a good question. We have some things but we're dealing with perspective here too. Under the sun, not in consideration of God, just men in general and their perverse hearts. So yeah, that's a good question. Read Proverbs or read Ecclesiastes, you're going, can this possibly be the same man? This can't be the same man. But I think that we need to remember his perspective when writing Ecclesiastes. That's why I said this book can actually just drive you up a wall because it's like, doesn't he already know the answer to these things? I mean, he said over in Proverbs what they were. All right. Our labors and our fruit of our labors is consumed by those who never labor. And then, we've got a welfare system, we've got illegal immigrants, we've got government waste, we've got taxes. And what do? They suck away your wealth too, don't they? These things. They take your wealth. Should we be upset with that? I think so, a little bit. For all his days are sorrows, and his travail grief, yea, his heart taketh not rest in the night. This also is vanity. Here is continued the same thought as in verse 22. What's the use? What's the use? Man struggles to provide for his family, and it is a struggle. We get our paycheck, we look at it and go, is that all? Then we see SS, our Social Security taken out, our federal tax taken out, our state taxes. I don't know whether you have state tax or federal tax here. Some states, Washington has no state tax, but they have federal tax. I don't know federal and state, so it depends. But all these taxes get sucked out of there, and then when you go to then not only do you pay taxes on that, you go to the grocery store, you pay taxes on that, and 40–50% of our income gets sucked up in taxes, believe it or not. By the time you get done counting all the taxes that you pay, half your income gets sucked up in taxes. Taxes, fees, pestilence, drought. He schemes, he toils. I'm going to sneeze. I just feel it coming on. My eyes are starting to water. It's like, ugh. All right, let's see if I can make it through this. I went to work one day, and I'm driving up to the parking lot, and all the windows have cardboard in my place of employment. There's people standing around. I drive into the parking lot to discover that my store that I was employed at was closing. I mean, no warning, no nothing. Do you know that you're going to be unemployed in about a week? Nothing. Just drove into the parking lot and said, you're done. We'll pay you for the day so that you can help move items out, but you're done. Can that kind of mess up your day, your week, any plans that you had, because you still have rent to pay, you still have groceries to buy, you still have gas to put in your car, right? And now your employer has shut down the business. Slippery slope. Well, bless the Lord, there were some other people from another parts store that were sitting over there in the parking lot. They're waiting for people like me to show up and say, you want to work for us? So I It was a better job. Took care of their industrial side of things, so that worked out well. So a man struggles between all these things, but and he says here that he toils at night. The mind never finds rest. He tries to find a better way, a happier way to take care of his family. He's worried about his struggles, and again, there's that anxiety that keeps him awake all night. Again, none of us have ever had that experience. You ever had your mind just go? You toss, turn. You say, why can't I just forget all this? Why can't I just go to sleep? You beg. You say, Lord, I need to go to sleep. I need some rest. It's hard. We get filled with anxiety. Sometimes days like that, nights like that, I just get up, I go to my office, I go to work, I'm not sleeping. So if you see the lights on in the office at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, you know it's either I'm awake and I can't go back to sleep, or I've been troubled in my mind and I'm up working. All these things can weigh heavily on our mind. And there is nothing better for man that he should eat, drink, and should make his soul enjoy the good of his labor. This also I saw that it was the hand of God. And we're going to, I got it. There's nothing better for a man that he should eat, drink, and should enjoy his soul, that his soul should enjoy his labor. Labor is a part of creation. When God created man, and he put him in the garden, what did he tell him to do? He told him to dress it and keep it. He was not to be idle. Adam and Eve weren't going to set up hammocks and just sit there and pluck at the fruit and eat and have the animals bring them food and do nothing. It was intended for man to labor, although he wouldn't have to sweat in his labor, because he tells us in the curse, by the sweat of thy brow thou shalt. So the ground just didn't give forth abundantly anymore. He had to work at it. A lot harder than he did in the garden. But there was still the dressing and the keeping of the garden. He was not to be idle in his activities. God didn't create man to be idle and sit around. What is implied in the dressing and keeping of the Garden of Eden demonstrates that man in his creation was never designed to be idle. When we all get to heaven, you got the song, when we all get to heaven, the day of rejoicing that will be, you think we're going to be idle? You think we're just going to sit around all day by the river banks and plucking the fruit and no, we're not. You had it right, sister. We're not going to just sit around and do nothing. The Lord has work for us to do. Whether we just be members of the choir or serving. I don't know all that he has us to do, but you know what? It's not being idle and doing nothing. Our minds will definitely be engaged. There's always learning. There's always being blessed. There's always laboring for the Lord. So there's no not being idle. Let's notice some things. First, there is nothing better. It says there is nothing better for a man. While he's on earth, things under the sun, there's nothing better, which appears that it is the purpose of God then. It is the purpose of God, because it says there's nothing better that a man not extend himself beyond that which is enjoying the fruit of his labor. When we labor, when we work, all that we do is we're supposed to be enjoying the fruit of our labor. In other words, let's not get all concerned. Let's not get consuming in the sense of trying to get as much as we can from whoever we can because we want to get rich. Because when you leave, who are you going to leave it to? But take take what God has given you and enjoy it. Simply enjoy it. Don't be consumed with anxiety about the things that you are laboring for. Be content with what God has given you and enjoy it. You ever heard the saying, stop and smell the roses? Sit down in the yard, get yourself some iced tea, and then just enjoy the birds and the grass. I mean, you can sit there and watch the grass grow. But
And the crow.
well, it grows pretty fast down here, doesn't it, brother?
And the crow.
And the crow, you can watch the crows. Yeah. But the geese, yeah. I mean, enjoy what God has given you. We get so consumed with the things that are going on in our life that we stop. We fail to stop and really just enjoy us. Enjoy us, enjoy ourselves, enjoy your children, enjoy your spouse, enjoy the creation that God has given us. I mean, that's why men like to go fishing. I get out there in that lake, and you know what? Their brain shifts. They forget about everything. And you know, they don't call it catching. They call it fishing. Going out there, there's nothing like going out there, throwing that line in the water. Of course, you know, if you go in the boat, you really don't have to work too hard. It's those creek fishermen that have to work really hard going up and down the creek or the river, casting, floating line. Anyways, I digress. I was thinking about fishing too. Enjoying what God has given us. It's what God has a purpose to us to do, and that we should enjoy the eating and the drinking of his labor. Your labor puts food on the table. Your labor puts a house, puts a roof over your head. Your labor provides for you the things that are in this world. Sometimes we get so wrapped up in all of those things, we forget to enjoy things that God has given us. Just stop and enjoy, because this is a blessing of God. I knew I wasn't going to get through this little section here. In fact, I'm going to stop. We'll pick this up. We'll use this as an introduction for next week as we move into closing out this section on labor, because we're going to use up all my time. So I hope this was a blessing to you, and be encouraged by it. Let's have a word of prayer. Father, thank you for your grace again to us today. Pray that you would be with us in the next service, encouraged, strengthened in the faith.